This is Chapter 6, Control of Cash. All right, so why bother to learn about controlling cash? The book's going to go through a bunch of principles and things, but I'm just going to tell you stories that might help you find it worthwhile to learn about these things that the book is telling you and give you examples of exactly how things have happened so that they don't happen to you at work. Okay, so cash is generally said it's easily hidden and moved according to various textbooks. And so how you don't want to end up is like the owner, and this is a true story of a local landscape company that lost a lot of cash over a 3-year period because the owner of the landscape company did not know about controlling cash, okay? I have a friend, John the accountant, who I will refer to now and again. He works at a mid-sized accounting firm in the area, and this was one of his clients. He gets a call from one of his clients, owned a very successful landscape company in the area. The owner tells John, he goes, yeah, my bookkeeper's been out sick for a week. He's never gets sick, and he's been out sick for a week. And we've had quite a few customers calling and saying that they've received second billings on accounts that they've already paid. And, you know, he asked John if he could come in and sort it out. So John, as accountants do, asks a couple of questions about the bookkeeper, and the owner of the company says, oh, the guy's great. He's been working for me since the beginning. He does everything. He takes care of all of the business stuff. He goes to the bank. He prepares the bank recs, he makes the deposits, he never takes a vacation, and this way I can just focus on my customers and building my business. So John rolls his eyes and says, okay, I'll go in over the weekend. And so what he finds is that the bookkeeper had been messing with accounts receivable. Now I'm going to tell you about this, not so you can do it, but so that it cannot happen to you. Okay, so I'm not teaching a course on how to do fraud here. Just want to be clear on that. So he finds that the bookkeeper's been messing with accounts receivable and just making off with cash each week as part of this process. So when a payment would come in, some in cash, some by checks, he opens all the mail, and he would record as paid part of each customer's account, and then he'd pocket the cash, the difference. And he did this, and he'd rotate which customers he did this to. And so most of the customers, as long as he was there, would never get a second billing. And in the meantime, he had this, big bunch of cash that he was building up. And that all worked out pretty well. It went on for about 3 years until he got the flu. He got sick, and he was out. And that's when the customers started getting their second bills. So what John discovered was that over the past 3 years, $847,000 in cash had gone home with the bookkeeper. Unfortunately, it didn't stay home with the bookkeeper. It went to Mohegan Sun. The bookkeeper had a gambling habit, but he was not a good gambler. The money was gone. So the money's gone. The bookkeeper gets fired. The owner of the company is really embarrassed. I should have known. How could I let this happen? He didn't report it to the police, and there were no assets to recover from the bookkeeper anyway, since they'd all gone to Mohegan Sun, and so he basically would have been building up a lot more legal fees to get for nothing. And then you could get to the district attorney level, and they've probably got bigger cases to take care of. So. The really scary part of the story, and this is for you as a business owner thinking you might want to hire a bookkeeper, I asked John, so what happened to the guy? And he goes, oh, I happened to see him driving around town in a nice new car, probably on his way to a new job. And we're just like, oh no. So when you're reading about, doing background checks, just doing, a little bit of research on people, checking references carefully, and all of the various other employee internal controls they tell you to do. Just think of stuff like this. He's not the only one. I could tell you probably 5 more stories of people I personally know of who have had situations like this. Okay, so and this is also an example of internal control being a challenge for a small business because, you know, if you're trying to separate record keeping from the custody of assets, that's a little harder to do if you've got one bookkeeper. But in this instance, you'll have to figure out, okay, so how could that have been avoided once you get through all those principles? Okay, so let's see. Control of cash payments, what kind of stuff do you run into there? So we're down here now. I guess most of the large thefts come from just fictitious invoices. Now, I ran a construction company for quite a few years, and we would get fictitious, fake invoices. There are people out there who just send out invoices to companies hoping they'll pay them. And so I'd get one of these invoices and I'd say, I don't recognize this. I'd check with my partners and they'd say, nope, we didn't do that. And so it goes in the basket. But they can be generated by employees within the company, in which case it would be fraud, or they can just be generated outside the company. So good internal control of cash payments will minimize losses from fraudulent billings and from various other schemes to get a company's money. All right, so what are good ways to deal with this? You'll run into the term voucher system, and all that is, it's a system of approvals. Someone is not allowed to pay an invoice that comes in unless they get it approved by somebody who has the authority to approve it. So a voucher system is something that you'll learn more about in this chapter. And then the use of a petty cash fund is another way of controlling cash, and our next couple of sections will be on that. And then we get into bank accounts and bank reconciliations, and these are essential to controlling cash because you have records of things rather than just, paying out cash. Okay, so we're going to go into more detail on how to manage the petty cash fund and how to prepare bank reconciliations. Okay, so we'll move on next to petty cash.